I'm Roopa Mahadevan, and I'm the director of the Navatman Music Collective. Well, I think for sort of the 6 months preceding the birth of NMC, as we call it, Navatman Music Collective, Sahi and I had been in talks about projects we could start working on. We had just finished the Indian Raga collaboration, and so I was hanging around Navatman a lot. In general, it was sort of my refuge. After a busy day at work, I would just come to Navatman, drop my bags, and like take a nap on the couch for an hour before going to my next rehearsal or appointment. So it just became a place I enjoyed hanging out around, and I came to sort of admire Sahi's vision and enjoyed sort of having a peer to talk to about art and being an artist in the city and being a woman and being a Desi woman and kind of what a vision could be for South Asian performing arts in the diaspora, particularly New York City. And so one of the conversations ended up being a Skype chat, I think if I remember right, in February of 2014, where Sahi had the brilliant idea of coming up with a Carnatic choir type ensemble, and she said, Roopa, would you be interested in directing this kind of thing? And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I had also been sort of looking for something to kind of call my own. At that time I was doing a lot of kacheris, but also collaborating with other artists, and nothing I think that was more self-directed, and so I saw it as a great opportunity for me to do something in a bit of a more leadership role. And so that's kind of how it started. And Sahi said, I have a couple of people that I think might be interested, and she sent an email and connected me with them, and sort of the rest was history. I'm not from a music or dance family per se, but my family always prioritized music and dance. So arts was as important to studies for me growing up in terms of, what my parents would prioritize. So they'd say, did you do your homework? And then they'd say, did you practice? So for them, in some respects, those were two equal things. So I had a lot of support, I would say, and pushing from my parents. And they kind of were not only sort of patrons of the arts, but also very active in the local community. So many of my weekends were spent listening to concerts or attending dance performances, and a lot of big named artists would end up staying at our house when they were on tour. So from when I was a little child, I was sort of exposed to all these great artists, and I think the classical arts became a very real thing for me and a very personal thing pretty fast. And my parents kind of integrated it into our way of life. So there was always music playing at home. On the way to school, my dad would quiz me on ragas. My mom would watch me while I practiced dance and give me tips. So I think it was very much something that was part of how I grew up, and it was nothing really for me to question. But then, of course, as any child has to face, and particularly sort of Desi Americans, I was caught juggling a lot of different things in my life. And at some point, it did become kind of a chore in the sense that it was another thing to do on the list and not always something I wanted to do. And that changed over time, I would say, from college onwards, where I really started to see my own identity in it, and started seeing it as something that probably I couldn't live without. So I actually started my music training with Jayashree Vardarajan. She's a big music teacher in the Bay Area. And then my major training and sort of probably my biggest influence vocally was my teacher in the Bay Area, Asha Ramesh. And then after college, I decided to move to India, Chennai, to really focus on music for a bit before I started any other sort of career. And so there I learned from Sugana Varadachari Mami. I would say I'm so grateful for all the teachers that I've had. They've sort of enabled me, not only in terms of imparting skills, but also given me the confidence to really explore Carnatic music and make it personal. And sort of be free to explore within the bounds and the parameters of the classical arts in a way that I think a lot of other teachers probably don't. In terms of Bharatanatyam, I learned from Indumati Ganesh. She learned from Chitra Vishweshwaran. And actually that was my first love, was dance. So at the age of 5, I was enrolled and I did my Arangetram in dance before I did my Arangetram in Pate. But I would say that both really complemented for me. And now I very much enjoy singing for dance as well. And I actually see the two things as being so interrelated, because one is sort of a visual, I think, manifestation of the other, and then of course dance can't be without music. So I feel very lucky actually to have had such strong training in both fields. So Ashanti, my music teacher in the Bay Area, was a really good multitasker. And I remember, like, anytime we would be singing, she'd be doing something else, but like listening very keenly to what we were singing. So I was singing and I was kind of going off in my own world, and I'm, probably singing okay, not great. But I didn't think she was listening because she was reading a magazine. And then I guess I had given her a picture of me at prom at some point, and she whipped it out in the middle of some Sangati. She's like, "Roopa, you look really good." And she started talking about me and my prom day, like in the middle of this kriti, and it like totally shocked me, but it was also so Ashanti because I could be myself with her, and she let me kind of live my American life. But then when it came to Pata, it was also extremely strict and wanted me to follow a certain method. And so I think that kind of ease with which she was able to operate, sort of both in the Western world and then in the Desi world, kind of helped me make sense of sort of what I was learning at the time growing up. So I think that was kind of an interesting memory that I had that I won't forget. Ashanti, Sugana Mami, and even my dance teacher Indu Auntie all have a very palpable sense of soul when they sing or dance. So it's not that I try to copy that, but certainly I try to invoke that. And ultimately that can only come from within you. It's nothing that can be taught or coded or anything like that, but it's something that I've observed. It seems to be something that they've kind of really emphasized with me, if not explicitly, sort of implicitly in the way that they have guided me. So I think that's sort of the common theme from all my teachers. Well, we had a lot of fun doing a composition. So Sahi had suggested to us that we apply for NPR's Tiny Desk. So we submitted an original composition. and that was a really, really fun experience. We pretty much did it in 1 week. So the lyrics were written by one of our members, Vignesh Ravichandran, and I composed the tune with some advising from Shiv Subramaniam. And I think it's something we're really proud of. Carnatic music, as glorious as it is, can also be somewhat frightening. You don't necessarily feel like you are allowed to compose or explore or go beyond certain limits. And I think, at least for me, I've tried to abide by certain core principles that I think sort of make up the essence of the music, but beyond that, want to feel absolutely free to explore and experiment. And I think creating compositions has been one way in which we haven't done a lot, but I think that's where we should probably go in the future. We did do one original composition by two amazing artists, Rajana Swaminathan and Anjana Swaminathan. It was a piece that they actually composed for piano and violin, but we adapted it to voice, and I know that's been sort of a favorite composition of ours that we've done. So I'm really looking forward to doing more such things. So I think the beauty of the collective is that we're really sort of about the members that are in the group at any given time. Naturally, there's going to be movement in and out of the group. None of us are actually full-time musicians. We all have other commitments. Life happens. People get married, people have babies, people graduate, people move on to bigger and better things. And so I think what I've tried to do sort of as the leader is create opportunities within the group that really meet the needs of who's in the group at the time. And I think that is a flexibility that is in Carnatic music that's not always used by Carnatic musicians, is to really think about what is the essence of the music that we perform and how can we explore it in ways that are not always necessarily familiar to us, that borrow from people's lives, from their experiences, from what makes them tick. And so I think in terms of a future vision, I would like that to sort of be the central principle of the group, is that it really ultimately, first and foremost, speaks to the members of the group itself. I think there's going to have to be some juggling act of balancing what we like to do with what maybe we want to share with people and what they want from us. So I'm actually excited about the prospects of what NMC could be. So for students, I would say give yourself time to get where you want to go. I think first and foremost, you have to love the music or dance. If you don't actually like it, it's okay. You don't have to do it. I feel like we really pressure ourselves sometimes to try to like something, and in the process, it becomes a sour experience. And often we have parents or society or whatever pressuring us. I think the beauty of an art form really comes to the fore when it does something to you, when it moves you. And so I would say if that's not the case right now, that's okay. You don't have to do it. Maybe there'll be a point in your life where you come back to it, and that's totally okay. Be open, I think. So some of the most exhilarating performances for me have not been with other Carnatic musicians. They've been with dancers, they've been with jazz musicians, they've been with R&B artists, they've been with modern dancers. I think when you're open and you start to see the common humanity in the people that you work with, I think that really opens up a dimension to your art that may not have been available to you before. And I think it's hard in a classical art form to sort of break from what seems familiar or safe. But I think there's so much joy to be had when you do that. So I would just encourage people to do that. I'm having a whale of a time doing that in New York City. So that's what I would encourage others to do as well. Bhartiya.
What's the one word that comes to your mind when we say music?
Joy.
Carnatic music or Bharatanatyam?
What? That's actually kind of hard.
Begada or Hindolam?
Sorry, you don't really know me. Begada.
Okay. Rap or soul? Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston.
Mariah Carey. Everyone will tell you I end up acting like the most immature. I act like the kid most of the time. Wait, don't put that.
There are these two guys, Roopa and Shiv, doing a Shemangudi thing and then switching from Bhairavi to Behag. And then I think I joined them for a brief second and they were like, oh my god, you should join Navatman Wednesday, 8 o'clock, Pearls, be there.
We had to drive all the way to Jersey because we had a rehearsal with these musicians. And of course, the person behind the wheel on that trip was Roopa Mahadevan. And you know, nothing there ends with sanity.
And Roopa Mahadevan got her kurti but didn't have tights to go along with it. So she wore capris and high heel shoes and she worked it.
And we had to travel back from Jersey to Manhattan, but we somehow decided to discover the other boroughs. Like, we got into Manhattan, but somehow ended up in Brooklyn and got to Queens, and then she drove us back because we got lost.
It was so good. She looked hot in it. Good job, Roopa. You worked it. It was good.
With Roopa, it's always, no, not gonna happen. You need to do this. First time, you got it. You don't get it. Second time, you don't get it. Third time, you get it by luck. Fourth time, she'll make you get it with your own effort. It won't be luck after that.
Favorite hairstyle I wish I had? Roopa's curls.
Yeah, it's been interesting actually to have to like sing and kind of direct at the same time. That's not something I've had any practice in. I would say most of the time it makes me a better performer, but it's actually giving me a lot of respect for teachers that do this. You know, growing up I saw so many teachers who have big group productions where they're the main performer and also responsible for everyone else on stage. It's like you do it all the time. It's hard. It's really hard. It's actually taught me a lot about myself in the process. And I couldn't have asked for a more compassionate, spirited, talented bunch of people to work with. It's really changed my New York life in so many ways. In fact, it's hard for me to remember what my New York life was before Navatman Music Collective. I have a newfound respect for my own parents too. Sort of to be kind of a leader and someone that people can go to, but then also have to calm yourself down and be in a position where you can also produce your best, I think is a really tricky thing to navigate. But I actually get a lot of my strength from the members themselves. So that's why I would call it more love, because it's not this hierarchical thing of director and people who are not directors. It's we all support each other, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and that's actually what is so beautiful about the group. And once we sing, it's like all the barriers are out of the picture. Then it's just that sort of universal truth coming to light. There are challenges, but at the end of the day, I think music and art kind of break all those down, and then at the end of the day, you're just having a great time.